Episode 68 was with Derek of the Homeless Gospel Choir.
Adam was able to talk to him over the phone and check out his new record, This Land Is Your Landfill, out through AF Records.
And check out our YouTube page and Facebook page at Bringing It Backwards, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at bringinbackpod.
Follow us, please.
We're Bringing It Backwards with Derek from the Homeless Gospel Choir.
Adam, how are you, buddy?
Great, how are you?
Man, I'm doing all right. Not too shabby today.
Yeah. For an Easter Sunday?
It just feels like a Wednesday or a Thursday, or it doesn't. Yeah, it just feels the same, I think.
That's good. That's good, man. Well, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate you. Thanks, Adam.
Of course. Thank you. I love the name, the Homeless Gospel Choir. How'd you come up with that?
We just picked names out of a sock.
Out of a sock?
Yeah, we chopped up a whole bunch of words and we just threw them in a big, huge, like Christmas stocking sock, and that's how it all sorted out a long time ago.
Really?
Yeah, straight luck.
How'd you decide on what words?
Just from like newspaper clippings.
That's funny.
Magazine stuff, yeah.
That's really rad. Our podcast is all about your journey in the music industry and how you got to where you are today.
Cool.
So we'll bring it all the way back to the very, very beginning. So you were born in Pittsburgh, or did you just grow up in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I lived here my whole life.
Right on. How is that? Or how is that?
I love it. Have you ever made it to Pittsburgh?
I have not. I have family in Ohio. That's the closest I've got.
Okay. Pittsburgh's great. It's a very blue collar working class town. It has been called the Paris of Appalachia many times. And it's very picturesque and beautiful, the way that the valleys cut down into the river, and it's very green and lush in the city. It's a wonderful place to grow up, and it's a wonderful place to live at now. It's super affordable. I love it.
That's awesome. That's great. Is there a big music scene there?
There sure is. Any type of music that you would be interested in, there's some sort of like sub-genre show happening in everywhere. I mean, not right now, obviously, because we're in quarantine, but
yeah, totally.
You know, in under normal fucking circumstances, like, you know, we'd go out to like a punk show or whatever. You can go to a ska show, or if you're into metal, there's like metal bands all the time. So like, there's so much awesome music in Pittsburgh and like amazing opportunities to participate in like the DIY music culture here. It's super sick.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool. Well, how'd you get into music originally?
Well, to be honest, my parents I came out of like a super conservative, right-wing evangelical Christian upbringing. So like, I wasn't allowed to listen to my own music. I had like, there was like, it was forbidden for me to listen to like certain types of music. So,
oh, wow.
When I was in 6th grade, I had a friend make me a tape of a band called Green Day. And they had a record out at the time called Dookie. I'd never heard anything like it before in my entire life. Mm-hmm. All the music that I listened to was like contemporary Christian, you know, gospel music or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really care for it too much. But like, hearing this music for the very first time, like, blew my mind. Like, I didn't know that there were other like there were no other like, you know, I didn't know there were other like weirdo misfits out there who felt like they didn't belong.
Sure.
And I heard like Green Day for the first time as an 11-year-old, and it was like super powerful to me, you know?
Totally.
This is like my music, and this is like my people. And like, I finally like had like a little place. Like, I know that I'm not allowed to believe in this thing, but I know that it's here. And one day I'm going to be, you know, I'm going to find it. And it took me, you know, years of wrestling with that and like knowing about punk rock and knowing about music, but thinking that it was of the devil and sinful and going to send me to hell. So I always like wrestled and struggled with that for a long time.
Yeah.
And then, I one day, like as a grown up, like as a proper adult, I just got an acoustic guitar and figured out how to play it. And just went around and started playing shows in like bars in like 2008, 2009.
Wow. So you didn't play through after you got that Green Day record? You didn't?
No, I didn't know that those things were even possible for me. I just realized that there was a whole outside world kind of. And like, I realized that there was this other place to be and belong. And, I really liked it. It was really intriguing, and it felt very dangerous and rebellious. And it reiterated a lot of the feelings that I had inside of my heart. And I felt very much akin to it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, totally. Were you able to explore other bands?
Oh yeah. I found out about The Offspring that same time. There was a video game called Crazy Taxi, and it was
I remember that game.
It was in all the boardwalks, all in New Jersey and Delaware and Maryland, and like any type of like place where there was like a video game arcade. You would see this thing and you'd hear this band playing. I was like, what is this band? And I found out that it was The Offspring, and then I found out about Rancid and Operation Ivy and Nirvana and all the rest of it too. So like, yeah, it was a big, huge like gateway for me for sure.
Yeah, right on. Well, so you didn't start playing guitar until you're an adult, was that?
Yeah, well after that. I mean, I played in some bands, but they weren't very good. I didn't take anything seriously. It was just like me slamming on distortion pedals and power chords and like trying to just be in a loud, obnoxious punk band, but it wasn't good or like thought out or anything like that. It was just like a thing to do.
Right. Well, when did you start playing guitar? Like, you just taught yourself?
Yeah, I would just sit there and I would listen to old Johnny Cash records, and I'd listen to old like Hank Williams songs, and all those songs are pretty much, 3 and 4 chords, and that's it.
Sure.
And I figured out, hey, if these guys can write these amazing pop songs with this very limited, range, I could probably figure something out too. So then I just started to like try to incorporate some of those Green Day chords that I learned on the guitar. And I was like, wait a second, you can turn this Johnny Cash song into a punk song. Let me figure out how to do that. And then I just started to like write my own songs that were like a mix between like Jawbreaker and, Woody Guthrie. And I just tried to write like these like fast, folky punk songs. And that's just kind of how they came out.
And then with that's when you just started going around and trying to hit up open mic nights and stuff?
Yeah, I would go and I would just play like a show. Like there'd be like an open mic night and I would play my songs, and I wouldn't expect any type of like, response or anything, because I'm not like, I wasn't a musician. I was just like, hey, this helps me with my feelings. I get to play these chords and say these words out loud in front of people. It helps me digest like these terrible thoughts that I have in my mind, thinking that I'm all alone in the feelings that I have. And, being able to like, work that out in public was like super important for me, almost therapeutic. And like, I would just do it, and I would just play punk shows, and like in between bands, there's like 15 minutes. Hey, Derek's here. Do you want to go up and play, 3 or 4 of your songs? Sure, I'll do it. And I would jump up there and I would play, 3 or 4 songs, and people seemed to like them. And then people would ask me to go and play more shows. And then, people from out of town would say, hey, do you want to come and play this bar? We can give you some money to come and play. And then you could drink for free. And I used to drink a lot back then too. So that was bad, but I don't drink anymore, but I did. It was also super enticing. Like, we can't give you very much money, but we'll put you up, we'll give you dinner, and you can have an open bar. And I was like, I'm there. Let's do it. And
yeah,
I just did that for like, maybe the first 2 years. And then I went out and I just started to, figure out what it was like to tour and like book my own tours. And, people would ask me to come in, Pittsburgh to Johnstown to Philadelphia, Philadelphia to Richmond to Greensboro, North Carolina, Greensboro to Asheville to Johnson City to Blacksburg to Roanoke to Cleveland, back hook around up to Erie, and then come back home to Pittsburgh. And then I would just do that like, once a month or sometimes twice a month. And then it turned out to be just like a thing that I was doing on the weekends to a thing that I was doing all the time.
Wow. And how are you booking those? You were just cold calling people?
Well, they would just ask me to come. They would just say, hey, we like your song. We heard you playing these songs on the internet. We think they're funny, or we think they're interesting, or we think, whatever. Do you want to come out and play these shows? And then I just would. And then I figured out about like touring and what it actually means and looks like, because I would go out. There was a band from Kansas City, Missouri called Listener. And I would go out with them. And they taught me about like what it is like to like book a tour that is like financially responsible, and like how to ask for money, and like how to, be in a band. and they just taught me everything that I needed to know. And like off of their own like DIY playbook. And since 2009, this has been my full-time focus.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So were you just touring by yourself?
I would just go in their van because it was just me and my acoustic guitar. And I would just like go in their van with them. And I would have like a little duffel bag with T-shirts that I'd printed in my backyard. And I'd have some CDs that I'd burned on my laptop and made like my own DIY, like, records.
Yeah.
And, I would just go out on the road for weeks at a time with them. And I opened up maybe like 150 shows for that band.
Wow, that's really cool.
I did a majority of my first probably year and a half of full-time touring was just opening up for them. And I never got paid anything. Like I never asked for money from the door because nobody came there to see me. They were all there to see this other band. So I was like, it would be unfair for me to take money, but I'm with you and I'm in the van with you. And, you all are riding me around and I get to, play in front of all these people. And they would like find me a place to stay every night with them, like whether it was a hotel or whether they were staying at like a friend's house or whatever. So like, It was just me, selling my records at the show, but it was enough for me to continue to do it for a while. It was sick. It was super awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, there's so many people out there that's just their dream is to go and tour, and you kind of just did it yourself, DIY style.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no one's going to come over there and do it for you, bud. You know what
Totally.
I mean? Unless you're Green Day or unless you're, Miles Davis or somebody, super talented and famous and great. No one's going to come over there and open up their mattress filled with money and say, hey, let me help the world see your art. Nobody's going to do that to you. Like if you want people to hear your song or see your art or, watch your movie or anything that you're into, you listen to your podcast, fucking whatever. You got to make people see it. And in this particular time in me traveling around and doing it, it was about, getting in the van or the car as much as I possibly could and playing shows to anybody who wanted to listen. And it was, I'm glad I did it. I look back on those times pretty fondly, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And tell me about the first release you put out, Some People Never Go Away. Was that, who recorded that? Was that all you?
That was just a demo record that I did. That was just a bunch of songs that I had just recorded in my friend's attic. And I just wanted to put out a vinyl record. I was like, let's write these songs right now. Let's record them right now with like a suitcase for a drum.
Oh, wow.
Let's just throw it together, write these songs, put them out right now. And we went up into my friend John Cordell's attic for 2 days and we came down and this record was it. And he mixed it there too. And my friend Chris Merlott out of Nashville, Tennessee, he used to live in Fairbanks, Alaska. He put this record out on his little teeny label called Deluxe Records. And we only did a pressing, I think, of 250, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it was just a way to just get these songs out because I always dreamed of putting a record out on vinyl. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to do it myself. So I did with Chris, and we just put it out.
Wow. And then were you touring on that, just touring and trying to sell that thing? You said there was only 250 copies. Those probably went quickly.
Yeah, I was on tour at the time. I had a bunch of CDs too. It was still a time wwhere people were buying CDs, if you can believe that. In a world where we participate in late capitalism, people were still buying CDs in 2009 or 10. And I had a whole bunch of those too. And yeah, I was on tour and I had them in a box. I remember I went and I played a music festival in Illinois, and it was in the summer in July. And it was so hot, and it was in this cornfield. And I had my vinyl in the van, and a few of them melted.
Oh,
and people,
man.
Yeah. So there's maybe like 10 of the 250 that are fucked.
And you sold them anyway? That's awesome.
No, I didn't.
I was going to say.
No, I didn't. People had returned them. They're like, oh, I bought this record from you, and it warbles. And I was like, yeah, no worries. I'll take it back. And I took them back, and I have them. They're in the world somewhere. I don't know where they're at. But they exist out there in the world for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say so many those 10 were probably like those are like the rarities of. I mean, there's only 250, but the 10 that came out melted.
Right. That's what's going to go ahead and really, pave the way for my financial future. Is whenever I'm able to find those 10 warbled records from 2010 that got left in the sun in Bushnell, Illinois.
Yeah, it'll be like the Butcher album.
Right?
Cool. Well, I want to know about what was the first tour you did? Was that with Listener?
The first tour that I ever did was actually in a car. It was in a 1983 Toyota Tercel, and we toured from Asheville, North Carolina to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with Aaron Buchanan, who was a singer in a band called Revolution Radio. They were like a Clash-style punk rock band.
Yeah, I know that band. I've heard that band before.
And I just did an acoustic tour with Aaron. We played maybe 6 or 7 shows, and we toured from Asheville up to Pittsburgh.
Wow. Were you guys, and you both played what, solo?
Yeah, just played solo acoustic, solo? Yeah.
And you guys took your car together?
He took his car, and I just sat in the passenger seat, and we just like slept on people's floors and stuff. Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool.
We did that. And then my first official tour with a band was I did a tour in March of 2009 with a band called Playoff Beard. They're like a 3-piece pop punk band from Pittsburgh. And we all 4 of us toured in a Jeep Wrangler. And we didn't have enough room to pack everything into the Jeep before we left for tour. So we had to go to the Advanced Auto Parts store at the bottom of the hill and buy one of those zip-up roof bags where we put the floor toms and we put the bass guitar and we like put all that stuff up on the roof and like, drove around with all that shit on the roof.
Oh man. Was that worrisome driving around with it up there?
No, I don't think so. Like we played we played a bunch of great shows. It was fun. It was a great little run.
Nice. And then the second album you put out was You Work So Hard Just to Be Like Everyone Else.
Yeah, I made that just on CD. And that was another home recording that I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those first couple were just like home recordings. I haven't listened to those songs in so long. I couldn't even tell you anything about them. Yeah, they're just like, we kind of just whipped them out, and I needed something to take out on tour, so I just like threw those things together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So how far back do you go when you play now? Was that Luxury Problems, or is that even one of those early demos?
Luxury Problems was the first official record that I put out as a record, as like a full piece idea of my first my first stab at it. And I recorded that album in Pahrump, Nevada with my friend Chris Nelson. And we recorded that in his garage in about 4 days.
Wow.
And yeah, that record came out. I put that record out myself. We did 2 pressings of that album. The first pressing I put out just on my own, and the second pressing was done by a local record label here in Pittsburgh called Between the Days Records, and they did a second pressing of 500 of that album. And we did, 3,000 CDs perhaps of that album.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And with that record, it's the same thing. You were just touring with people and,
I also had at that time I was driving it wasn't that car. I had a 1998 Chevy Cavalier that I was driving on tour.
Okay.
And I just had, I just put all my stuff in the back, and I had a blanket over my guitar in the back seat, and I toured in that for a good bit.
Does that, is touring with just you and being able to leave at a moment's notice, do you think that you had, and I wouldn't say an advantage, but do you feel like it was easier to kind of do that stuff because you had you didn't really have any, you weren't bringing around a drum kit and bass guitar band and stuff.
A lot of the best opportunities that I was offered at a very early time was stuff that was like, hey, this is coming up in 3 days. We had somebody else that was supposed to do it, but they bailed. Can you come out and do it? And I was like, yep, I'll see you in Milwaukee. I'll figure it out.
Wow.
Just being a one-person endeavor was great for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of had some advantages, huh? With doing that.
Yeah, for sure.
What about driving? Did you ever go on tour just by yourself, or did you bring anyone with you as far as like a merch person, or did you do some of those tours just only you cruising around?
I've done all of that. I've had friends on the road who've just come for a couple of shows. I've done long drives on my own. The longest one I've ever done on my own is 14 hours. I drove from Pittsburgh to Kansas City, Missouri, and it was to start a tour there. And I drove that straight in one clip.
Whoa.
But for the most part, like, I like to, like, when I go on tour and I have my own say of it, you know, we have a person who books our shows now, so it's nice to have a booking agent who takes care of that. Because I hate doing it, to be honest with you, Adam. I really do.
Yeah.
I hate talking to people about money. I hate having to come up with like the arrangements. Like, I don't like any of that. So it's nice to have, you know, somebody take care of that for us now. But like, I don't like to drive more than 3 hours because I like to wake up late. I like to have a nice breakfast. I like to get in at a reasonable time in the afternoon. So like when I'm on tour, we only do like a nice little 3-hour drive now, which is super sick. We try and keep it like no more than 6 hours. So like we have plenty of time to like, you know, just rest and hang out and get to, you know, be in a city for a while, you know?
Yeah. I'm wondering, like, some of those shows that you had to play by yourself, like, drive by yourself, was that, like, nerve-wracking at all? You'd have to show up to these places that maybe you've never been. You're by yourself, and you're supposed to try to figure out, you know, who am I supposed to meet up with? Where am I supposed to play? Like, did you have any, like, I don't know, rough interactions in those early tours by yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really afraid of anything, so I wouldn't think of that necessarily.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe that's just my paranoid brain.
There are some times where, I mean, there's times where I was in a neighborhood where I was unfamiliar with things, but I'm driving in a fucking beat-ass, you know, Chevy Cavalier that has dents in every single panel on the vehicle. Like, no one's going to come and give me any grief.
Yeah.
Like, I just have, like, an old, like, throw blanket in the back seat. Like, I wasn't necessarily worried. One time I was playing a show in Detroit at the Old Sanctuary, and I showed up early, like 3 hours early, and it was the venue is right on 8 Mile, so it was a very underserved neighborhood in Detroit.
Sure.
And I was approached by somebody who was in great need, and they asked me if they could have a cigarette, and I said I don't have a cigarette. Well, and then they put their foot in my door and they said, well, you got something. And I was like, yeah, we can get you a pack of cigarettes. No worries.
Yeah.
So I just shut the door and we walked to the gas station and I said, what do you smoke? And he says, Marlboros. So I bought him a pack of Marlboros and I was like, have a great day. And he's like, do you want a cigarette? I was like, no, it's fine. You can have them. And like, we had like a departure, but like, it just, you know, I out on the road, I never really had nobody ever tried to give me any grief, really.
That's really good. Yeah. Because that would be, I mean, that's just my paranoid brain. That would be my biggest worry is like, I'm out by myself and, you know. Luckily for me, like, even when I'm on the road by myself, I'm only by myself for the drive in between towns. I've been able to, like, over the last, you know, fucking forever. Mm-hmm. Like, I've just made like good pals where I go places. Like, sure, it's good to like play music and have a show, but like, I'm really there to hang out with my friends and eat their food. Is really why I'm even on tour ever. Like, oh, y'all, you know, when my friends are like, there's a new burrito place in town. I'm like, I don't even care if we play the fucking show. I really don't. Let's just go and get like a burrito,
super stoned, and eat the burritos at your new burrito spot.
I love that. So then you put out in 2014, I Used to Be So Young, and that was kind of the turning point for you, wasn't it? Yeah, that was the first album that I put out that received any type of attention, I guess you could say. Was there something different about that? Like, how did that happen? Well, it was the first album that I put out on AF Records, which is the guys in Anti-Flag, and I worked with Chris Number 2, who plays bass in Anti-Flag, and he produced those songs for me, and I just had basic skeletons and basic little fragments and ideas, and we made that record together in the Anti-Flag practice space. Wow. And that's where we recorded it too. And from that time, we're putting that record out. Some people have heard my album and they liked it enough that they wanted to also take me on tour. And some of those tours were really big and fancy and overwhelming at times. To go on tour with Anti-Flag and Frank Turner. Wow. And
Frank Iero from My Chemical Romance and the whole bit. Playing these really big old fancy shows that I certainly wasn't. I was used to playing, DIY spaces and bars and basements and things like that. And to go from there to playing on this larger, to much more people was like super interesting. It was interesting to witness.
Yeah. How did you meet Chris from Anti-Flag?
Well, he was in a band in Pittsburgh that I loved called White Lives. They were like a loud indie band. Okay. And that's actually how I was introduced to him, because there was this enormous buzz about this band. How they're this. It's an out of body experience to go ahead and see them, and yada yada yada. And I went there so pessimistic to go see this band play. I was like, I'm not impressed by anything. I've seen at the drive-in. I've seen videos of the Clash. They're not going to do anything that I haven't already seen, Yeah. And I went to the show and they blew my mind. It blew my mind. And I was just like, it was a fucking house show. They were playing at a house show at a place called 222 Ormsby, which is where these people live. And they have like this show space in the common area that fits a lot of people. It's a really big house show. Okay. And like, I saw them play on the floor and it blew my mind. That's kind of how Chris and I met. He asked me to play. He also played in a Green Day cover band where they only cover Dookie.
That's awesome.
They just play Dookie and they play it front to back, and that's it. When the show starts, you can bet in like 32 minutes, the show's going to be over. They play it right all the way through.
Did they even do that?
They were like, "Hey, do you want to open up the Dookie show? We're playing the Green Day set." And I was like, "Sure, I'll play it." And I played it, and they saw it. They had a chance. We played a show together, and Chris was like, "I really like what you're up to. I'd like to make a record with you." And that's how it all sorted out.
Wow. When they do the Green Day record, did they play Trey Cool's song at the very end?
No, they didn't play the secret song. No. I think they wanted to keep it extra PC. Yeah. As much as you can with Green Day Dookie, they wanted to keep the end of it PC, I guess.
That's so funny. It's so cool that Green Day Dookie was like the thing, the record that kind of changed everything for you, because that was the album for me as well. I remember hearing my neighbor, his sister had the record and she was playing it through, and just remember hearing Basket Case particularly and being like, oh my God, like this is something like I've never experienced as well. And I got that record for Christmas, and it had some language in it, and I would listen to it with my headphones on so my parents didn't hear it and stuff. But yeah,
sure.
I mean, that album, dude, is just such, yeah, it's like the album for me as well. I love that. And
it happened at such a perfect time, It
did, yeah.
It happened at such a perfect time when I think the world needed punk rock really bad. And it was a great service that was provided for kids who really needed a place to be. I mean, it was a godsend for me, truly.
Yeah, and I think the same thing. It's quite amazing how impactful that record is on people. So was Chris was he in Anti-Flag at the time that he was doing that Green Day cover band, or?
Yeah. Okay. It was just a fun thing they do, like 3 or 4 shows a year. I mean, it wasn't something they did all the time. It was just like, oh, all of our friends are in town together. Let's get fucked up and do the Green Day show.
Okay. And the band that you saw him in, that was also the house party show. That was also after he was already in Anti-Flag.
Yeah, this was like 2011. Perhaps.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he was in Anti-Flag at the time, but also in this other band while Anti-Flag was, I think, taking like a break in between records or something. I'm not exactly sure that part of it.
And after he came up and talked, did you know that he was in Anti-Flag and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, you just decided,
which is why I kind of wanted to hate it when I saw it at first.
Oh, interesting.
Not that I wanted to hate it because it was Anti-Flag, but it was this new thing that had all this buzz about it. And I was like, I wanted to, and I never go into things like this. I never go into like a situation with like negative thinking, but I was like, you know what? I don't know who these cocky dicks are, but I'm going to go to this show and I'm really going to not like it. and it blew my mind. It was, it was such a pleasant surprise.
How did the initial like meetup start to where he was like, yeah, I want to work on a record with you?
It just happened at that Green Day show. After the Green Day show, they were leaving for tour. I think they were going out with the Lawrence Arms, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I love
Or it was either Lawrence Arms or Touche Amore, one of those two. I'm not too familiar. But they were going out with one of those bands, and that night, and Chris was just like, when I get back home, we'll sort it out and we'll get working on this record. And I was like, dope, let's do it.
Recording that record and then getting it put out on AF Records, were they kind of like what was the difference between that, I guess? Were you just getting more exposure? Were you getting like...
I don't know. I still don't know anything about the music industry. I just do my best to do what I think is like the most punk rock thing to do. And that's what I do. Like, I have to ask myself, I don't know what's cool or not cool, but I think about like, what would Ian MacKaye from Fugazi do?
Sure.
And I ask myself that question. And if the answer is like kind of in line with it, okay. I feel kind of okay about it.
So that was when you get signed to AF Records. That must have been pretty exciting, I would think, right? Like having somebody like work with you and
I learned. I never. I'm sorry. Let me answer your question. I got lost there for a second. The big difference was I never knew what a record label did or what the purpose of it was, and I never had a PR agent before, and I never had a publicist before, and I never had somebody to ship my records before, and. It was the most punk rock thing ever. I went and had breakfast with Chris Stowe, who's the guy who runs AF Records. We went to Pamela's. We had scrambled eggs and toast. He said, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put out this record. You're going to buy these records off of us for $8 a piece until we pay ourselves back from pressing them and for all the ads that we took out. Does that sound fair to you? And I was like, yeah, it sounds super fair. He's like, cool, let's shake on it. And that was kind of it. I did have to sign a paper that, I did have to sign an agreement just for like the banking account and stuff like that. But like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I think it's going to cost us. Does this sound fair to you? Yeah, sounds great. And that was really it.
Wow. So then Normal was the next record.
Yeah. Normal was more thought out. Normal was, I got some advice. I was on tour. And I got some advice about writing songs and different types of structure. And I decided with Normal that I wanted to write. I didn't know necessarily how to write a concept record, but I knew what a concept record was, and I knew that I liked them. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I think I could make this too. I have this idea in my mind, and I have kind of like this really bizarro, Peter Pan meets, Pee Wee Herman meets Robin Hood puppet show idea about this kid who's tormented by the devil and the police in his mind. And what it sounds like to always feel different and hear like this really weird noise or maybe a voice in your head and how this character overcame that and defeated it. And that's what I wanted to write about for Normal. And that's the record that I wrote. With Chris. I wrote that song Normal itself in Johnstown, Pennsylvania with Mike Miller from Endless Mike and the Beagle Club. We wrote it in his garage in an afternoon. Literally maybe like an hour we wrote that song.
Whoa. And so that ended up becoming pretty much a concept record then.
Uh-huh.
Wow. And then that leads us to the record you have coming out on April 24th. Which is This Land Is Your Landfill. And this album was quite a bit different, right, than your previous? Because did you write it with a full band, or you recorded it with a full band?
Well, we wrote it with I recorded this record. I wrote this record with Matt Miller, who also plays in Endless Mike and the Beagle Club. It's Mike's twin brother. Oh. And I was on tour with Frank Turner in Europe, and I just was like, I just want to write this loud punk rock record, and I want to write it with you, and I want to like be in a band, and I want to travel around and have a band, and I want to be in a band, and I don't want to do this by myself anymore, and I want to be in a band, and I want to be in a loud punk rock band, and I want you to be in my loud punk rock band, and I want to write these songs with you. And he was like, yeah, sounds great. And I came home and we started to write these songs together, and started to think about what it would look like to be in a band. And
Do you know, like, what did you have, like, what made you decide to say, you know what, I want to be in a band now, 10 years later?
I think it just gets lonely up there all by yourself.
Yeah. So you just wanted to have,
there's a lot of, it's a lot of weight to bear when you're just up there. I mean, I was on tour with Frank Turner. Those weren't little shows. Those were, we're playing these giant rooms of thousands and thousands of people. I'd never seen anything like that before. And it just made me feel like really small. And I was like, not that I didn't feel confident in the songs that I wrote. I was like, wouldn't it be great if I could share this experience with more people and like celebrate it? So at the end of the show, I don't know if I did good or if I did bad or anything. I'm just in my room by myself because the next band's already on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, wouldn't it be nice to like process these feelings and make new art with people that you know and that you trust and that you love and that you know that they like cool music and they're going to put like, they're going to make your record sound cool. And, let's just do this together and try and make a punk band out of it. And yeah, it made the most sense. And that's the music that I was hearing anyway, inside my mind. On that Frank Turner tour, my father passed away in the middle of it.
Oh my God.
We had like 10 days off in the middle. And I went from being in Europe with Frank Turner and the Arkells, and I came home and my dad passed. And then, I had to start a tour a few days after that with Lucero and the Menzingers in the US.
Wow.
And I just couldn't. I tried so hard to like write sad acoustic country songs. Like I tried with everything inside of me to write like super sad, like Merle Haggard songs. And I couldn't do it.
Oh, wow.
All the feelings that I had inside of me were like super loud and super violent and super angry and like really distorted with like super big fucking pounding drums and like choruses of voices all singing in different keys and like just like really loud and obnoxious parts too. Mm-hmm. And like that's I just wanted to make a piece of art that was like congruent to the feelings that I was feeling, and this was the only way that I could figure out a way to do it.
Mm-hmm. And this new album that's coming out, This Land Is Your Landfill, did you write that yourself, and then you just had the band come in and play kind of what you were envisioning?
No, I was I had a few skeleton parts sorted out. I had songs. I had basic structures to certain things, but Matt and I tackled that together. All the writing and the getting it all together.
Okay. And tell me about the new album. What are you excited about for it? What was, beside from having the band now, what else was different about this record?
It's just a better record. It's the best thing I've ever made. It's the most honest portrayal of current feeling that I could possibly portray. I'm anxious all the time about the end of the world, and I'm worried about it. And I think, we're touching too much single-use plastic all the time, and people are getting sick, and people aren't being taken care for, and these politicians are telling us that it's not a really big deal. But it is a really big deal. And all day long on your cell phone, you're getting sold like all these images and ideas of what it is that you should be and how you should look and how you can't measure up to somebody else who's doing yoga in Fiji, eating grapes, getting their foot massaged or whatever. And there's no fucking chance ever that you'll ever measure up to that. And then you think about everybody that you see in your feed from high school and like how you're comparing yourself, even though you don't even want that life at all whatsoever, how you're comparing yourself to like, oh, that person seems happy. And they're on the complete opposite side of it, like with kids at home, miserable, like, man, Adam looks like he really has it all together,
right? Yeah.
And there's like just this vicious cycle of comparison culture that leaves us all extraordinarily paralyzed. And I wanted to write a record about like the mania and paranoia that goes along with cell phone addiction in a progressive culture where we're continually being spied on. And the religious rulers that we thought were once, shot asunder are rising to power and taking away fucking abortion rights and like making people who are from the LGBTQ community afraid again to like lose their marital, rights and things like that. It's enough to drive you fucking berserk. And I just wanted to write a record about how all that like made me feel. And I wanted it to be loud and aggressive. And I think we were able to, achieve that in many ways.
Well, very cool. Are you excited? Have you played as a full band yet?
Yeah, we played 31 shows last year, right before the lock-in.
Okay.
We did 2 tours, one with a band from Philadelphia called Ramona. And we did a tour of the entire U.S. with a band from Indiana called Harley Poe. And then we played some of our own shows too. We played a show. We played Black Christmas with the Suicide Machines and Anti-Flag. And then we played Erie with the Code and Anti-Flag as well on a little weekend, like right before the Christmas holiday break. And then we were supposed to be, I think, what's tonight? Tonight's Easter. We're supposed to be, I think we're supposed to be in Chicago tonight.
Oh, yeah.
On tour.
Oh man, that's too bad.
Yeah. Like we made this, we spent the last 2 years like making this record and writing it and recording it and like having a plan to put it out.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the time that we're supposed to be out, like showing people the record for the very first time. And we're not, and that's fine. It's just, it's weird to change gears like that, you know?
Yeah, totally. From having this whole plan and having the record and being excited about the tour. And now it's, oh, well, we had to stay inside.
Well, everyone was like, are you going to wait? Are you going to wait to release the record? And I was like, wait for what? People are already locked inside their homes. If what a better time to like share art with people when they'd love to have it and they're a captive audience. They can't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They have to listen to it,
Yeah.
In all seriousness though, like I know whenever a band that I really like puts out something, when I really need it, when I feel sad or I feel low or I feel like I'm going to lose my mind and a band puts out something that's remarkable that is, that changes your mood and changes your mind and changes your worldview, how important that is. And not to say that my music necessarily has to do that for anybody, but hopefully the people who are listening to it and that like it get something out of it. And hopefully if I'm able to give it to them while they're in a time of need, hopefully it'll be just as meaningful if it would have come out, when everybody's just like eating ice cream and going to the park.
Yeah. What were playing the first shows with the full band like? Was that strange to you? Was there some getting used to it?
I mean, I'm a nervous wreck all the time. I mean, I puked my guts out, I think, every night of that first tour.
Oh, man.
Just because I just want it to be the best and I want everybody to love it. But those shows were great. I booked those shows all myself. I just called places that I knew, and we played Creep Records in Philadelphia, and we played like little coffee shops and like the smallest places we could find, just because I wanted to test it out and see how we played as a band and just like give it a shot.
Yeah.
And we didn't ask for any money. We just said, hey, can you collect money at the door and give it to us? And people said yes. So we didn't even have like contracts or didn't even talk about any of that stuff. And it all just like sort of sorted out.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate now that you can't just jump on the road with the new record. But like you said, I mean, this is the time that people need something. And
I mean, to be honest with you, the second that we're allowed out, we're going to play shows. Yeah. The second that like I find out that clubs are opening up and booking gigs, I'm just going to call my friends that I know that live in like Buffalo, New York and Toronto and Cleveland and Columbus and Philly and Detroit and like the local areas. And we're just going to get in the van and just go and do it because I want to play shows with my friends. I don't care if it's like, if 40 people are there in a gross ass basement, I'll be super stoked.
That's cool. Well, Derek, thank you so much for taking time out of your Easter Sunday morning to chat with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on your show. I do appreciate you too. Great questions, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I have one more for you if you have time.
Yeah, please hit me.
Okay. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists, people that want to tour and do what you're doing.
Yeah, do it. Just go out there and just do it and just say yes. And if there's a show to play and someone asks you to play it, do it. If you do it enough and you're good at what you do, there will be a demand for the thing that you do. And then people will ask you to do it. And then you can go ahead and make a living doing it. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And the more that you play those songs in front of people, the better and more comfortable you'll be at doing that. And yeah, just go out and seriously do it. Even if you're not even that great, you're like, oh, it's not right. The song's not right yet. Who fucking cares? Just go out there and do it. Or write another song. Or like just sit there with a tambourine and a penny whistle and just blow on it and just like to get your wiggles out or whatever. It doesn't have to be good. I think that's a big misnomer that a lot of people think. It's like, oh, it's not good enough yet. Who says who?
Mm-hmm.
Who says who it's not good enough? Fucking show somebody and let the people decide if they like it or not. I would be remiss if Bob Dylan never wrote a song because people said his voice sucked.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point.
You know what I mean?
Totally. That is a great point.
I think about, other people who are like, oh, I'm just not ready. I'm not ready to do it. I'm not, just go for it. Biz Markie was perfect. I think Biz Markie is one of my favorite rappers. And like, he just went out there and did it and just wore his heart on his sleeve and just went out there and just absolutely made people listen to his music. And they did, and they loved him for it. Yeah, that's what I would suggest you do. Just go out there and do it.
I love that.
And if you're not good, that's okay. You have plenty of time to get better. But just do it. Don't wait around.
Bringing it backward.